think it was fall of 1992 or 1993. I tried to write a poem about lunar eclipse at the time, and didn't go very well. The one thing I remember about that poem is I compared the moon to an egg yolk rolling across the sky and rolling up the stars like salt. It's funny talking about that kind of thing as a muse and as an occasion for trying to write a poem. Actually, so the poem I'm going to read tonight is kind of a product of frustration of trying to come up with something to write a poem about. And I mean, one thing that happens when you're you want to write a poem and you can't come up with something to write a poem about, you might be tempted to write a poem about writing poetry, and then it might become that while you're writing a poem about writing this particular poem that you're writing, which to me is a temptation that you don't want to succumb to too often, but I've actually succumbed to it twice tonight. Before I do that, the American poet Mary Oliver died last month, and so I want to read one of hers. I listened to an interview that was played in remembrance of her after she died in the middle of January, where she was asked about one of her famous poems, which I think is called "The Wild Geese." And she told the interviewer that she actually wrote it as an exercise. She was teaching poetry, and she said she wrote it as an exercise in end-stop lines. So just, putting a period at the end of lines. I'm actually not all that familiar with Mary Oliver's poetry, and so I had to look up that poem. When I was looking up this the Wild Geese poem, I came across this other poem called Snow Geese, which actually I like more than any of her other poetry that I've come across so far. And I don't know, it speaks to some things that speak to me, so I wanted to read that. But I like this idea that she wrote this poem that became one of her greatest hits as an exercise. That it was a thing that she wanted to try to do, and it ended up being this thing that kind of transcended the form, which for me is always a thing that, what is it you're trying to do in writing poetry, and how do you start, and how do you do it? And I'm always drawn to forms, but you want to do something that transcends the form. Anyway, but this other poem of hers that I came across, Snow Geese, goes like this. Oh, to love what is lovely and will not last. What a task to ask of anything or anyone, yet it is ours, and not by the century or the year, but by the hours. One fall day I heard above me and above the sting of the wind a sound I did not know, and my look shot upward. It was a flock of snow geese, winging it, faster than the ones we usually see, and being the color of snow, catching the sun, so they were in part at least golden. I held my breath, as we do, sometimes, to stop time, when something wonderful has touched us as with a match, which is lit and bright, but does not hurt in the common way, but delightfully, as if delight were the most serious thing you ever felt. The geese flew on. I have never seen them again. Maybe I will someday, somewhere. Maybe I won't. It doesn't matter. What matters is that when I saw them as through the veil, secretly, joyfully, clearly. That's Snow Geese by Mary Oliver. Speaking of forms, that poem by Mary Oliver, so, it's free verse, and some of the lines are very short, some of them are longer. I don't know about you, but one of the first things that I learned in school, one of the few things I learned in school about reading poems, is you're supposed to ignore the end of the line and just read it as if it was, I don't know, prose or something, which always seems wrong to me. I don't know how it feels to you, but why do you write it in lines as if you're not supposed to read it in lines? The line's supposed to be a line. And that's actually a thing that Mary Oliver said in this interview. The interview, by the way, it's on the On Being show with Krista Tippett. It's a podcast. You can find it where you get your podcasts. Anyway, but she's talking about what poetry is, and she says, well, and she's one of these people who says, well, poetry is writing where the words don't go to the end of the page. And, clearly the line is important to her. And so, when you read it, the line's a line. It's a line for a reason. Anyway, this one I want to read of my own. The lines are definitely lines. It's a sestina, so that's one of those formal forms. I don't know what it was that made me think I want to write a sestina. Alperti has a sestina, which is pretty good. It's called Sestina on a Train, but I don't think that's where I first got the idea. I don't know where I got the idea from, but I wanted to write one of these sestinas. So a sestina, it's ses like six. So it's 6 stanzas of 6 lines, and each line ends with a word that repeats in all 6 stanzas. So that's what a sestina basically is. So this is Sestina on a winter night, 2019. I'm running out of time and can't remember a thing it was I thought I should be doing with all this time I'm running out of. Maybe I'll see if I can try to write a poem. It doesn't seem so far as if it's helping, but anyway, I might as well keep going. I ought to try to work out where it's going, but if I did, how long would I remember? I can't imagine how this can be helping. There must be something else I should be doing instead of counting words to write this poem. I should have gone to bed already, maybe. But even though I think this isn't maybe exactly how I thought this should be going, the more I keep on working at this poem, the more I think I might somehow remember whatever I had thought I should be doing. I hope it works, since nothing else is helping. It could be someone else's poems helping, and that's why I should keep on writing, maybe. It could be that I don't know what I'm doing and never will, but still I should keep going to help somebody somewhere to remember how anyone's supposed to write a poem, or how they're not supposed to write a poem. I'm sure there's no way else I could be helping, and if there ever was, I don't remember. And even though through all this time it may be impossible to tell how well it's going, it's still the thing I have to keep on doing. So this is what I've been up all night doing. I had to find a way to write this poem before I start forgetting that it's going to be the only thing I've done that's helping. It's almost morning. I'm afraid that maybe I'm running out of time and won't remember. Whatever I've been doing, whether helping or not, I wrote this poem, and now maybe there's something someone's going to remember. I do all right with that rule, last name King. Although it occurs to me I've never met another person personally with the last name King. Anyway, yeah.
There's one in Tweed.
Well, yeah, but it is the thing. I grew up in Toronto, the Toronto area, and so you got all kinds of different last names.
So did I. That's why I've never had another Snell.
Well, there you go. There you go. When you do meet one, you gotta grab 'em. Anyway, so this is my second poem of the night that's about itself. I need you to listen carefully and write down exactly what I say. Huh? I'm making this poem up as I go along. If you don't write it down, it'll be lost forever, like this one was. This is a poem that no one will ever hear, because I thought it up and forgot to write it down, and forgot how it went, and forgot I ever thought it up.